Have you ever been sitting across from someone you love, maybe at a cozy cafe, maybe in the car, and suddenly realized you're not really talking anymore? You're just managing each other, smiling when you're supposed to, listening just enough. And somewhere deep down you can feel it. The spark that used to make your chest ache a little is just gone. You're not enemies. You're just two people trying to remember how to love each other the way you used to. Now imagine this. What if that slow emotional drift wasn't because love faded, but because your brain quietly rewired itself? What if the real truth of dating your partner isn't about romance or communication tips, but about how the human mind confuses comfort with connection? That's the hidden story behind most relationships that fail, and almost nobody talks about it. But here's the twist. Your brain doesn't fall out of love. It just gets bored of predictability. When you first start dating, everything's new. You get a rush of dopamine and norepinephrine, the same chemicals that spike when you win something unexpected. Your brain treats your partner like a mystery to solve, a reward to chase. But once you figure them out, that mystery disappears. You start mistaking stability for stagnation, and that's when the danger begins, when your brain quietly whispers, maybe something's missing. Soft piano music fades in. Show subtle brain scan animation fading onto screen. Let's rewind. Back to when you first met your partner. Every text felt electric. Every conversation was alive. You noticed every tiny thing about them. Their laugh, their scent, the way they touched their hair when they got nervous. Your brain was on a high. But fast forward a few months, or years, and that same brain starts filtering out all the familiar details. It's called habituation. It's what helps you stop noticing the hum of a refrigerator or the smell of your own perfume. It's efficient, but emotionally, it's lethal. A 2025 study from Stanford on long-term relationships calls this affectional fading. It's not that love dies. It's that your attention does. The mind stops releasing the new love chemicals because it thinks the puzzle is solved. But here's the crazy part. You can trick your brain into falling in love again with the same person. That's the truth of dating your partner. The best relationships aren't built on finding new people. They're built on rediscovering familiar ones with new eyes. Let me tell you a story. There was a couple, Mia and Ryan, together for 6 years. Everyone thought they were perfect, but quietly they were unraveling. The conversations turned shallow. They fought about small things, toothpaste caps, text replies, weekend plans. The real problem? They'd stopped dating each other. They still lived together, loved each other, but emotionally they'd become business partners managing a shared life. One night, Mia said something that hit Ryan like a lightning bolt. She said, "I miss missing you." That line stayed with him, because that's exactly what had vanished. Longing. They were together all the time, yet they barely felt each other anymore. So Ryan tried something different. Once a week he'd plan a first date, but not a fancy one. Sometimes it was a drive to a random spot they'd never been. Sometimes it was cooking something messy in the kitchen with music on. The point wasn't the activity, it was novelty. Because novelty reignites dopamine, the brain's excitement signal. Within weeks, they started laughing again, flirting again, talking again. Not because their problems disappeared, but because their brains remembered what wanting each other felt like. Cut to close-up of hands brushing across a table, slow motion fade. Here's where the science gets wild. When two people experience something new together, even something small, like trying a new dish or taking a spontaneous walk, their brains release oxytocin and dopamine simultaneously. That cocktail of chemicals mimics early attraction. It's like hitting reset on your emotional circuitry. This is one of the simplest hidden brain tricks for better focus and connection you can use, and you don't need therapy or a relationship coach to do it. But what if your partner doesn't meet you halfway? That's the question most people are too afraid to ask. Because deep down, it's not just about losing interest, it's about losing hope. There's a psychological concept called emotional mirroring. When one person emotionally checks out, the other unconsciously mirrors that withdrawal. You start protecting yourself. Conversations become safer, shorter, less real. It's not rejection. It's defense. Your mind is trying to protect you from more hurt by lowering the emotional investment. Now here's the painful irony. When both people start doing that, love begins to die. Not through anger, but through apathy. You don't fight, you don't cry, you just stop caring. That's the quiet death of connection. But what if I told you there's a flip side that changes everything? That the same brain mechanism that causes disconnection can also rebuild it, if you feed it the right kind of emotion. Let's go back to 1967, to one of the most fascinating psychological experiments in relationship science, the Bridge Study by Donald Dutton and Arthur Aaron. They had men cross two bridges, one stable and one dangerously shaky. After crossing, a woman asked them to fill out a survey and gave them her number. Guess which group called her more? The men on the shaky bridge. Why? Because their brains confused fear with attraction. Their adrenaline spiked, and their mind translated it as chemistry. Now imagine using that same principle, not manipulation, but emotionally charged experiences. Couples who do thrilling things together, roller coasters, hikes, even deep conversations, trick their brains into reigniting attraction. That's why therapists often suggest doing something uncomfortable together. The brain can't tell the difference between adrenaline from fear and excitement from love. So if your relationship feels dull, it might not need fixing. It might just need feeling. Let's make it practical. Tonight, try this. For 10 minutes, do something that feels new or slightly uncomfortable together. It could be asking each other questions you've never asked, or sitting in silence looking at each other. No phones, no distractions. Your brain will resist it at first, but then something clicks. The discomfort turns into connection. The mind stops predicting and starts experiencing. That's when love starts breathing again. There's another layer to this: emotional safety. Modern psychology calls it secure connection, but I like to think of it as emotional oxygen. When you don't feel emotionally safe with your partner, your nervous system stays in defense mode. You interpret neutral moments as threats. A pause feels like rejection. A joke feels like criticism. But once safety is restored, once your partner feels like home again, everything shifts. You laugh more. You forgive faster. You feel seen. One couple therapy study in 2025 from the University of Toronto found that partners who engaged in 2 minutes of intentional eye contact daily reported 40% higher emotional closeness within 2 weeks. 2 minutes, no words, just presence. That's a quick mental health fix without therapy, because your brain interprets sustained eye contact as deep trust. Now, maybe you're watching this and thinking, that sounds great, but what if I'm the only one trying? Then here's the truth that hurts but also heals. Sometimes self-respect means letting love go when it stops being mutual. Because dating your partner isn't about endless effort. It's about equal energy. Real love grows when 2 people choose curiosity over comfort, again and again. But when one stops choosing, the other can't carry both hearts alone. And that's okay. It's not failure, it's feedback. A reminder that you can't lose what's truly meant for you. You can only lose what wasn't ready for your level of awareness. So maybe dating your partner isn't about candlelit dinners or couple goals. Maybe it's about waking up every day and deciding to see the person beside you as new again. Someone with stories you haven't heard, fears you haven't understood, dreams you haven't asked about yet. Maybe it's about loving like scientists, curious, open, willing to be surprised. And maybe that's the real truth. Love doesn't die from distance or arguments. It dies from familiarity without fascination, from being seen every day but never really looked at. So tonight, when you see your partner, ask one question you've never asked before. Something real, something raw, something that makes them think. It's not the big gestures that save love. It's the small moments that make the brain remember why it chose this person in the first place. Because in the end, dating your partner isn't a phase, it's a mindset. One where love isn't a memory you try to keep alive, but a mystery you keep learning to explore. And if that hit home for you, pause this video for a second. Try one of those small experiments tonight. Then come back and tell me in the comments what changed. Hit that like if it made you think differently about love. Subscribe if you want more weekly psychology stories that actually stick, and stay tuned. Because next week, we're diving into the hidden psychology of why we sabotage the people who love us most. Until then, keep exploring your mind. Because understanding it is the most intimate love story you'll ever live. Maybe that's the real secret we keep missing. Love was never meant to stay the same. It's meant to evolve just like we do. When we fall in love, our brains crave novelty, mystery, and discovery. But when we stay in love, they crave safety, trust, and depth. The problem isn't that love fades. It's that we forget to keep feeding both sides of the equation. So when people say, dating your partner shouldn't feel like work, they're half right. It shouldn't feel like labor, but it should feel like effort. The kind of effort that says, I choose you again, even after I've seen the parts of you that aren't easy to love. That's not routine. That's devotion. Maybe you've been through those quiet nights when everything feels okay on the surface, but deep down, you know something's missing. That's not the end of love. That's the mind asking for renewal. The same brain that once fell in love with your partner can fall in love again. It just needs curiosity, presence, and a bit of emotional courage. So here's your final takeaway. Love isn't a feeling to preserve. It's a practice to keep alive, a dance between familiarity and fascination, between I know you and I'm still learning you, between comfort and curiosity. And if you remember nothing else from this video, remember this: relationships don't die from lack of love. They die from lack of wonder. From forgetting to look at your partner the way you did when you first saw them, like the whole world had just appeared in front of you. So tonight, don't scroll. Don't escape. Sit with the person you chose, or with the memory of the one who once made you feel alive, and ask yourself, what if I started dating them again today? Because the truth of dating your partner is simple. You don't fall out of love by accident, and you don't fall back in by magic. You fall back in by attention, and if this made you stop and think, don't let it end here. Hit subscribe. Let's keep unraveling the hidden patterns of the human mind together. Leave a comment with one moment you're going to bring back into your relationship this week. And remember, the most beautiful love story isn't the one that starts strong. It's the one that stays curious,